All right, welcome to the Ironwood Gym. To get things started, please, if you like what you're seeing on these videos, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you know other lifters, coaches, or fitness enthusiasts that you think can get something out of this, because it is an educational channel, please share it with them so they can start learning from these videos as well. All right, today, gonna talk about intensity. Okay, no, it's not intensity. All right, it's really not about how much you grunt and yell and squeeze and make your face red and all those sorts of things. That's not what intensity is. So, although that's what we call people when they're like that, we say they're very intense, but that's not intensity. All right, intensity is actually a defined training parameter, and we need to treat it as such. So I'm going to define intensity, but really what I want to talk about today is the difference between absolute intensity and relative intensity. So, intensity. If you have someone, or you yourself, let's say you're a 500-pound squatter, and you're going to lift at 60% today. 60% of 500 is 300 pounds. All right, so your intensity is the 60%. Okay, 60% is the intensity you're lifting at. That is the relative intensity. Relative intensity is simply the percentage that you're working at. Absolute intensity would be the 300 pounds. Okay? So absolute intensity is the actual weight you are lifting. In fact, you don't even need to have the percentage. You could just look at the weight and know what your absolute intensity is. All right, so if I'm lifting 305 pounds, my absolute intensity is 305. If I'm lifting 400 pounds, my absolute intensity is 400 pounds. And you're probably sitting there thinking right now, so why is this important? Who cares? If you know the percentage and you know the weight, who cares if it's absolute or relative or all that sort of things? Well, it is important, and it's important to know, because for the easiest example I can give you, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but the easiest example I can give you is if you have a 1,000-pound squatter, and he's going to squat 1,000 pounds. That's his 1 rep max. And then there's a lifter on the next rack that can only squat 200 pounds. That is their 1 rep max. That's the most they can do for 1 rep. And they both do it. All right. 1,000-pound squatter gets under the bar. He squats his 1,000 pounds. Then after that, he is going to probably crash. He's going to be completely drained, exhausted. His body is just going to be, everything's just firing and fatiguing, and it'll be very hard on his overall system. The 200-pound squatter then gets up after the 1,000-pound squatter is now feeling like death. And the 200-pound squatter goes, and then he takes a couple hard breaths, and he acts like nothing happened. Why is that? Okay, if absolute intensity doesn't make a difference, they both lifted at 100%, so their relative intensity is the same. They lifted as much as they possibly could for 1 rep, both of them. Why is one laying on the floor and the other one good to go? All right, now you're probably some people are probably sitting there saying, well, if they only did 1 rep and it's 1,000 pounds, that 1,000-pound lifter is just completely out of shape. Well, not really, but let's take it a step further. Okay, so let's do a set of 10 at 70%. Okay, one set of that's doable, because at 70% you should be able to get more than 10 reps, but it's tough. It's not going to be an easy set. So now your 1,000-pound squatter has to squat 700 pounds for 10 reps. Your 200-pound squatter has to squat 140 pounds for 10 reps. Excuse me. After they get done with the set, now if you thought the 1,000-pound squatter was done after he squatted 1,000. Watch what he does after he squats 700 for 10. He is going to be completely drained. Okay. Whereas that guy squatting 140 pounds now, he gets done. He probably takes more than a couple deep breaths, and he's still fine. He'll be fine the rest of the day. It's probably going to take a week for that 1,000-pound squatter who just squatted 700 for 10 to recover and be able to really start picking up training again. If it was just a matter of being in shape, then the stronger lifter could just go add more GPP in and be fine. But that's not the case. Okay? That's not the case. The effect on the overall system, the entire body, having that load, which is so much greater. I kind of said that a little bit backwards. That significant 1,000 pound load or 700 for 10 load, the effect of that on the body is so much greater than only handling 200 pounds or 140 pounds. It is phenomenally greater. Okay. So that is a big difference. And you could say, well, okay, but it's really not that big of a deal because the 1,000-pound squatter is over here and the 200-pound squatter is over here. So why do we even care? No one cares what a 200-pound squatter does anyway, unless they're just learning everything and we're trying to help them get better. So what? Okay, so here is where it makes a difference in your training. If, let's say, for example, Let's talk West Side for a second. They utilize the max effort method, okay? And they utilize a different exercise every week for the max effort method. Week 1, box squat. Week 2, low box squat with a safety squat bar. Week 3, cambered bar box squat to a parallel box. Week 4, box squat to a high box. Okay, so let's walk through those. And I'm just throwing out numbers here. But let's say it's a 1,000-pound squatter. And we follow the percentages, which really should all be thrown in the trash. Most of the time, I do have some good uses for them. But we follow the percentages, and your box squat is 85% of your actual squat. So your box squat is 850. Well, that's 150 pounds difference than your actual squat. So it doesn't have the same effect on your nervous system. Okay, and this is one of the complaints about West Side is that they're always at 100%, so there's no way they can actually recover from that. But in truth, it actually can recover from that because you have to look at absolute loading. So what do they do on week 2? Safety squat bar. Okay, so safety squat bar is only 80%. So now they're only going to do an 800-pound safety squat bar box squat. So their absolute intensity went from 850 on week 1 to 800 on week 2, which is only 80% of what they can handle in an actual squat, which is 1,000 pounds. So really, their absolute intensity has dropped significantly. Their relative intensity is still 100%. Now, week 3, they go to a low box with the cambered bar. Okay. Now their low box, who cares what height it is? 2 inches below parallel, 3 inches below parallel, doesn't matter. But they can only do 650 off that. So now 850, 800, 650, down below the screen there, 650. But that's only 65% of what they can actually squat. So you see how their absolute intensity is dropping. Their absolute intensity went 850, 800, 650. Okay. Then next week they're going to do a high box. They're week 4. They're going to do a high box. Okay. Now they get to 900. See that chart? 850, 800, 650, 900. In 4 weeks. And they never got above 90% relative to their actual squat, not their relative intensity, because their relative intensity is 100% of what they could lift on that exercise on that given day. But their overall intensity compared to their squat never went above 90%, and it was as low as 65%. So that's why it's important to look at the absolute intensity. Okay? The absolute intensity, 850, 800, 650, 900. That's why absolute intensity is important. Because you have to understand the effects of the weight on the system, on the body. More weight, more effect, right? More recovery that's needed, more total fatigue that happens. Okay, it affects the system to a much greater degree. The more weight you lift, the much greater effect it has on your system, regardless of the percent that you're at. All right, so every day they're at 100%. So yes, that in and of itself is stressful. That does emit or induce a lot of stress on the body, but it's not as high as it would be if they tried to come in and squat 1,000 pounds every week. In that case, they're up here, 1,000 every week, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Much greater impact on the body. So that is why knowing the difference between absolute and relative intensity, and knowing that 100% for one person might be much greater than 100% for another person because of the actual load they're utilizing, the absolute intensity. Please keep that in mind. That is it for today. Please check out my other videos. Okay, there's plenty of them out there. And as always, stay in the pursuit of strength.